Good morning. It's Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers. And today is the Tuesday, the 25th of July 2023, and we are at 11:09 a.m. here in Melbourne. And this morning I've decided to continue with the World History Series 2 programs that I present, and this is program number 68. And the last one was on the 9th of July. Unbelievable, the time just goes by so quickly. But as I said, I will come on to do these programs when I've got time. And sometimes they'll be close together, and some other times they'll be stretched out. But the intention is to keep going with it, and we are looking at the geographic and commercial revolution following the discovery by the Europeans of the new continent of America. So, what happened with all these travels by Europeans out there on the ocean waters towards India, and then by mistake Christopher Columbus goes to America? He doesn't even know that he's there. So that's why we call the indigenous Americans Indians because of him. Well, but now they're sort of rectifying the misconceptions of the past. So we're going to start with see what happened as a result of all these journeys by the navigators. They're very brave people indeed. And, there's a lot of discussion today about Indigenous rights, and rightly so, but we can't forget, though, that there has been a lot of progress worldwide in terms of how the world connects with itself for our humanity. Because, once upon a time there were no nations, there were tribal areas. And then slowly they sort of progress is very, very slow. But the progress that occurs usually does so because of some extraordinary things that happen, including unwanted wars. Things change. The way society works now in some parts of the world, not in all parts of the world, but we're getting there and understanding each other, and making sure that in fact we don't discriminate against anyone from because of their colour of the skin, the culture they come from, etc. All the other differences, because all these differences really make up our world to be an extraordinary place. It's fantastic, in fact, to see that over the years, things have changed so much and so quickly. One other consideration here is that because now I am sort of free. I've freed myself in terms of when I come online, therefore I can't announce it as well. So my assumption is that people will watch these programs eventually. So if you do, please do make comments. I don't mind them at all. Just to give an indication of, of who you are and what do you think. At the end of the day, are you interested in history, and which part of history are you interested in? So now, for example, tomorrow, I'll have my third class, I think the third one, for this term, the second class for this term, for World History at the University of the Third Age, there in Deepdene in Melbourne, in North Balwyn. So, and I hope that students who come to the classes, plus the ones who, that will just come on and listen to a particular program, will enjoy what I do and will further their knowledge, by being stirred on to looking up the things that we discuss here. And today it is overseas empires, the spread of European civilizations. And European civilizations, after Christopher Columbus, basically was Spain and Portugal and Spain. And then, soon after, of course, the English, the French and the Dutch and other European powers, if they can be called that, were interested in trading with India to get those spices. Because, as I've said last week, because of the Turkish Empire developing in the Middle East trade was hampered in a way because the powers that be in those areas started to want traders to pay some sort of tax, and the voyage there, the trip there on land, was quite dangerous as well. So some of the Europeans said, "Okay, let's get to India and let's see what we can do by going across the waters," and they did. So that's it for now. Let me start. National prosperity. So what happens here? It happens that all this trade, of course, led to a lot of prosperity, because in terms of the world, Europe is quite small in landmass. Here we go. In this commercial revolution, various European countries enjoyed fleeting periods of preeminence. At first, Portugal was most prosperous, as Lisbon was temporarily the wealthiest city in Europe. But emigration to starve its vast empire cut this tiny country's population almost in half. So if everyone leaves the country, you've got fewer population to look after within your own country. Moreover, when the Spanish King Philip II assumed the Portuguese throne in 1580, Portugal was reduced to a secondary place in overseas commercial competition, a setback from which it never recovered. So they had, this great period of wealth and influence, and then, it's sort of, the baton was passed on to Spain. Spain enjoyed a similar temporary period of greatness. For most of the 16th century, Spain was the mightiest nation in Europe. So all the 1500s belonged to Spain, literally, in terms of influence. It had more gold and silver, better armies and larger navies than any rival. But the Spanish kings failed to develop industry and farming at home. Gold from the colonies went through Spain to enrich other European countries. Men went abroad. Manpower and population declined. And by the end of the 16th century, Spain was no longer a great power, though it was some time before this was widely recognised. So the Spaniards always thought that, they were as important as they were in the 16th century. Now, I've just noticed that Spanish, in fact, remains the second largest language in the world, after Chinese, and then the English comes number 3. So let's have a look now at what happened to Holland. Holland also enjoyed a short period of greatness. Now, Holland is a very small country. By 1650, it was the principal commercial, financial and industrial nation in Europe. So we're talking about here the 17th century or the 1600s. But it was too small to hold this position against its growing rivals, England and France. Eventually, in the 18th century, that's 1 century later, England and France engaged in a second 100 Years' War. this time for mastery of the seas and colonial supremacy throughout the world. And of course, we know the result. The English did a great job, but the French had to cope with the French Revolution, which heralded, in a way, the ideas of liberté, égalité, fraternité. In other words, the ideas of democracy in the world and confraternity. Whereas in England, the kings became, were the monarchy still had a lot of influence. So therefore, the monarchy is not democracy. But England moved slowly towards constitutional parliamentary democracy. But it's always under the rule of the king. Or, it's sort of their power, their religious power of once was curtailed over time. Okay, so that's that with with national prosperity. So the Europeans, very lucky, if you notice, there are 5 big nations benefited from the trade. And I want to show you here what happened. There we are. Look at this. Small Spain, Portugal. Have a look at that. France and England. And the Roman Empire was just around the Mediterranean Sea there. And then you see the Portuguese had Angola and Mozambique. And then they were trying to go to India, across India, the Indian Ocean. But, they went up and up Africa there, where Madagascar is, and went there. So they couldn't go, they could have gone directly from there to here, but they decided to come all the way around. But in the meantime, because of the mistake that Columbus made, instead of coming down the coastline of Africa, he went across to El Salvador, where Jamaica is, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, there. And then eventually, the century after, the Spaniards had control of all those lands, Peru, Chile, New Spain. Of course, there were people there already. The indigenous people have got a right to sort of demand some sort of compensation over time, but the world, it wouldn't be the world we have today without these explorations by the Europeans. So that's it there. And eventually Australia comes into the fold of the world by 1788. So that's it. So let's have a look at what happens here. Overseas empires, the spread of European civilization. The Western European countries followed up their discoveries and explorations. Paola Mata, welcome. By establishing empires abroad. The motive was usually commercial, for European rulers and merchants were chiefly interested in tapping the wealth of far-off lands. But this involved getting political control to keep out other Europeans and to guarantee a steady flow of wealth from the colony. So the whole idea of colonization was to exploit the local indigenous peoples and areas wherever the discovery was made, wherever they went, really. Missionaries too, so another one. It's money and then religion. Missionaries too were willing to accept political and military protection to help convert masses of natives. Thus, for various reasons, the Western European nations competed to establish empires abroad. The effects of this imperial policy are moulding world affairs even today. It's true. But now we're in another era we are in the era of the universe, the exploration of our immediate universal areas of the cosmos. So a pity that we are waging wars here on Earth when we should really be going out there and checking out which other planets can have human life. I believe in it. I guess, in our nature to be adventurous, and also we love a challenge. That's true. And, from my point of view, I've seen it in the act of migration. Now, not all migration is successful, but some of it is, and the migration that is successful has produced very good results. Now, let's talk about the Portuguese Empire for today, and then we'll stop there. Portugal was not interested in taking more territory than was necessary to tap the wealth of the East. The Portuguese therefore set up a series of factories or armed coastal cities along Eastern Africa, India, Siam, Cochin, China, that's Vietnam, etc., China and Japan. These cities gathered wealth from the interior and loaded it on Portuguese ships. For a time, this spring of coastal cities made Portugal unbelievably rich. But such an empire was hard to defend against strong naval rivals, and eventually parts of it were lost. So you can't, you gotta have the right people in place, and you've got to be able to maintain what you've gained. We have this today, wealth even in our own societies, in democratic societies especially. Some people become very wealthy and some are still poor. So governments have to try to keep a balance. Everyone needs to eat and have a roof over their head, etc. But the extras, they come with wealth, the travel and the restaurants, this and that. They need money to be able to do these things. Okay, now the Portuguese developed a different kind of colony in Brazil. And Brazil still, its main language today is Portuguese. Portuguese Brazilian. Or Brazilian Portuguese. Here they established an agricultural colony where emigrants went to establish permanent homes. Jesuits were imported to civilize and Christianize the natives. These books here they call civilized, Christianized I can understand, but civilized, the natives had their own culture. They didn't want to necessarily be civilized. What do you mean by civilized? Is it because you have power and you can exert your power over others through your arms, etc. You call that civilization? Maybe civilization is peace in the world. Think about that. But Brazil was a vast territory, a little more than the coastal region was occupied and civilized. In other words, and made into the like of Portugal. Okay, so that's that for today. And I hope you enjoyed that particular part of my program. And now we go to China. See, I maintain my interest here in world affairs by going from one place to another and looking at the history. Now, this was in the 16th century. We're talking about today in terms of Europe, but here we are in imperial China now, and they had the imperial civil examination system. I'll read it to you. See what happens in China. Starting in the Sui dynasty, the imperial government selected its officials from the ranks of the successful candidates in the imperial civil examinations. Bureaucracy, rather than wars here. The imperial civil examination in the Tang dynasty was classified into two types, the regular one and the irregular one. The regular examination was held every year. It had many levels such as Xukai, Mingying and Jinshi. three types. The Jinshi degree was the most difficult to attain. Every year, hundreds of men took the Jinshi examination, but only one or two passed. Those who passed the Jinshi examination would attend a lavish banquet held by Kuizhang Pond, and their names would be announced under the Great Goose Pagoda in the Qian Temple. The regular examination was set spontaneously by the emperor himself, who acted as the chief examiner. However, it was of less importance than the regular one. There were two kinds of people who took the imperial civil examination. One consisted of students chosen by academies, who were called Shengtu. The other kind, called Xiongong, consisted of those who had passed the examination held by prefectures and counties. The imperial civil examination in the Tang dynasty was usually presided over by the Board of Rites. Those who passed the examination would be re-examined by the Board of Rites and then receive various kinds of official positions according to their examination results. The imperial civil examination system was the method used until the late years of Chinese last feudal dynasty, the Qing, Qing, last feudal dynasty, the Qing, which fell in 1911. So this civil examination system lasted for centuries in China. And that probably explains why Chinese people hold education to such in such a high value. They put a lot of value in it because of this, obviously, the imperial civil examination system that lasted hundreds of years has had an effect on the Chinese culture and its people. So, the Qing, which fell in 1911, to choose talented men for official positions. Many historians thought that the imperial civil examination system was an excellent system for selecting civilians, and it has been the guarantee of the sound development from the Sui and Tang dynasties to the Ming and Qing dynasties for more than 1,000 years. And it's true, it's based on merit, meritocracy. If there's a word that can describe the Chinese even today, it's that they value the meritocracy. You're good, you get rewarded. But, they forget family's family. Oh, well, we'll see what happens in time. However, during the Ming and Qing dynasties, the imperial civil examination system, which stressed knowledge of the Confucian classics exclusively, became a rigid and stultifying institution which kept China from adopting modern scientific methods. So, the political systems need to be able to advance. They can't be, even religions, you cannot have very rigid rules all the time, over centuries, because that holds you back. In fact, the societies that progress better than others are the ones who adopt, the system of knowledge, meritocracy, but also are able to then also progress in other areas by trialing certain new discoveries, or changing the system a little bit at a time. So that's where we're at. Well, the Chinese Here, the little, I'm going to show you this. This were the examiners there, that sort of writing. This one. And then this was the system, see? Those students holding the examination system in China. Very interesting. So that's it for China for today. We've done that, and again, my hour is divided up into sections, and now we go to the next one is, of course, Africa, and we're going to talk about the Swaziland. Let me bring it up, and we'll see what happens. So I'm using the book system, and I'm using also Swaziland. Yes. Swaziland. Here we go. Now, where is it? Here we are. It's called Eswatini. Officially, the Kingdom of Eswatini, and formerly named Swaziland, is a landlocked country in southern Africa. It is bordered by Mozambique to its northeast and South Africa to its north, west, south, and southeast. Okay, so let's have a look. Now, Eswatini, Swaziland is now called Eswatini, formerly Swaziland, officially renamed Eswatini in 2018. So it's very recent, the fact that Swaziland has become Eswatini. And formerly named, officially renamed, it's a landlocked country in southern Africa. It is bordered by Mozambique to its north and South Africa to its north, west, south, and southeast. At no more than 200 kilometres north to south and 130 kilometres, 81 miles east to west, Eswatini is one of the smallest countries in Africa. Despite this, its climate and topography are diverse, ranging from a cool and mountainous high veld to a hot and dry low veld. There you are. The capital is Mbana for the executive, Lobamba for the legislative. The largest city is Mbana. The official language is Swazi English, a form of English, but with the native language attached to it. So the religion is basically, the groups of people there are Swazis and Zulus, and also others. Religion is Christianity, Protestant and Christian, with a small percentage of no religion, undeclared, and a traditional other faith. So Swaziland is basically a Christian country. Government, unitary absolute monarchy. Wow. So but they've also got a parliament, a senate and a house of assembly. So the population is composed primarily of ethnic Swazis. The prevalent language is Swazi in native form. The Swazis established their kingdom in the mid-18th century under the leadership of Ngwana III. The country and the Swazi take their names from Mswati II, the 19th century king under whose rule the country was expanded and unified. Its boundaries were drawn up in 1881 in the midst of the scramble for Africa. After the Second Boer War, the kingdom under the name of Swaziland was a British High Commission territory from 1903 until it regained its full independence on the 6th of September 1968. In April 2018, the official name was changed from Kingdom of Swaziland to Kingdom of Eswatini, mirroring the name commonly used in Swazi. Eswatini is a developing country and is classified as a low middle income economy, etc., etc. You can look it up. You can look it up. I wanted to show you the map, but I'm not sure. Okay, Eswatini. I'm trying to point it out. Here, this is where it is. Let me show you. That's where Eswatini, in just South Africa there. You can see it there. Then you can look it up yourself. Okay. Oh, we want me. Moi. Here I am. Okay. So that was for Africa today. And thank you to my iPhone for that one there. Now, I have here, before the invasion, let's see, how are we going for time? 11:40, that means we got 20, oh no, it's plenty of time. All right, cave art and cave and rock art. This has got to do with, of course, before the invasion. This was the civilization that existed in Australia. And now I call civilizations, whether primitive or not, you know, from Neolithic times to today, they're all civilizations. Every group has got its own civilization. But on a larger scale, we're talking about civilization when we got all the modern weapons, let's say, or systems in place, bureaucracies, people living a good life, you know, easy to live in, but then you have to follow rules. As against when you are in a small country town or on a mountain or in the plains or near a river and you've only got a few people there. It's still a civilization. Okay, so here we go. Retouching Wangina painting. Oh, in the Kimberleys. Wangina, okay. Wangina is a painting. You know, it's one of the Aboriginal Dreamtime heroes. The art of the Australian Aboriginal people depended upon their way of life. Because they constantly travelled about their land and had no permanent shelters, they could not build large monuments or keep fragile treasures stored away in temples. But they did keep some of their sacred objects in caves and other safe places. Instead, the Australian Aborigine get painted on the walls of sheltered caves, carved on living trees, and engraved on flat outcrops of rock. So, the caves important, the rocks become important, and living trees. Even the trees are used for art and craft, I suppose. Much of the art was for a particular purpose and intended to last only for a short time. In Central Australia, the people did careful ground paintings of intricate design and hardened the paint with their own human blood. They were wiped out when the ritual for which they were made was finished. So they didn't keep anything much. It was temporary. Everything was temporary. Welcome to Curtis L. Tolman. Good to see you back. The elaborate body decorations took days to make, but they were used only in the sacred ritual for which they were intended and then wiped off. Marisa Francavilla, welcome too. Carved shapes were chopped after the ceremony, burned or thrown into a sacred waterhole. A man or woman would trace a story in sand for a child, then wipe it out. Art was thus a constant creation and not a hoarding of things like we have in our European tradition. And, Asian as well, and other parts of the world. This is quite unusual to use art only for temporary purposes. The artist found joy in his creation and did not wish to keep it forever. He knew that when the right time came around again, the designs and shapes would be created anew. So they didn't want to copy what had been done in the past. It was how things had always been. Life was a constant renewal of Dreamtime images. So, notice here, the Dreamtime, the core belief of the Aborigines comes to play. So religion is a mainstay in all groups of people from time immemorial. It doesn't matter what religion it is, whether it's an animist religion, from the things that are close to you, or whether, there's another type of belief like, from out of this world. The heroes of the Dreamtime, the spirits. Art was an essential part of the life of the Aboriginal people, and like everything else of importance, it had come down from the Dreamtime ancestors of the people. They had created, and in turn, the peoples recreated the great creation myths. The Wandjina paintings of northwest Australia show some of these ancestral heroes. These were figures with white bodies and halo-like headdresses. The Aboriginal people did not consider the paintings to be the work of a human artist, but believed them to be the actual creative heroes themselves. Men had the responsibility of retouching them from time to time. Okay, so, I'll do just a little bit more. Let me see. Yes, I'll just do a bit more. Other figures in Aboriginal art were the stick-like magic makers, for example, the Mimis of Western Arnhem Land. These strangely graceful paintings showed people in action, running, leaping, fighting and dancing. They were said to be the self-portraits of creatures who lived in the rocks and only emerged at night. They were said to be so fragile that the wind could blow them away or break their limbs. Quincans were more stick-like figures, this time from northern Queensland. Unlike the Mimis, the Quincans were shown in a static pose. Sometimes the heads were in a praying attitude, and the headdresses were of a style not seen elsewhere in Australia. So these stick-like figures represented an early style and were found not only in Australia but in other parts of the world, such as the Sahara Desert in Africa. In Western Arnhem Land, these older forms were later replaced by the X-ray art of that region. X-ray paintings show the inner parts of the animal as well as the outer form, hence the name X-ray. These paintings covered the walls and ceilings of rocks, shelters, and were magic images used for hunting. Okay, so we're going to stop there. Interesting. Cave art. So the Mimis, the Wincams, the Wandjina, interesting names. Okay, so that's that. Now, of course, we come to Well, that was before the invasion. Now, what happened after the invasion? After the invasion, there are two friends of ours, and they are Benja Patterson and Henry Lawson. They are the colonial people. And here I've got Benja Patterson, I've got here Song of the Wheat. Wheat, you know, the grain. So let's have a look what he says about that. We have sung the song of the droving days, of the march of the travelling sheep. By silent stages and lonely ways, thin, white battalions creep. But the man who now by the land would thrive must his spurs to a ploughshare beat. Is there ever man in the world alive to sing the song of the wheat? It's west by south of the great divide, the grim grey plains run out, when the old flock masters lived and died in a ceaseless fight with drought. And I've seen this place. It's flat, but a lot of wheat. Weary with waiting and hope deferred, they were ready to own defeat, till at last they heard the master word, and the master word was wheat. Yarran and myall and box and pine, 'twas axe and fire for all. They scarce could tarry to blaze the line, or wait for the trees to fall. Here the team was yoked and the gates flung wide, and the dust of the horses' feet rose up like a pillar of smoke to guide the wonderful march of wheat. Furrow by furrow and fold by fold, the soil is turned on the plain. Better than silver and better than gold is the surface mine of the grain. Better than cattle and better than sheep in the fight with the drought and heat. For a streak of stubbornness, wide and deep, lies hid in a grain of wheat. When the stock is swept by the hand of fate, dipped down in his bed of clay, the brave brown wheat will lie and wait for the resurrection day. Lie hid while the whole world thinks him dead. But the spring rain, soft and sweet, will over the steaming paddock spread the first green flush of the wheat. Green and amber and gold it grows when the sun sinks late in the west, and the breeze sweeps over the rippling rows where the quail and the skylark nest. Mountain or river or shining star, there's never a sight can beat, away to the skyline stretching far, a sea of the ripening wheat. When the burning harvest sun sinks low, and the shadows stretch on the plain, the roaring strippers come and go like sheep on a sea of grain, like ships on a sea of grain, till the lurching groaning wagons bear the tale of the load complete, of the world's great work he has done his share, who has gathered a crop of wheat. Princes and potentates and czars, they travel in regal state, but old King Wheat has 1,000 cars for his trip to the water gate, and his 1,000 steamships breast the tide and plough through the wind and sleet to the lands where the teeming millions hide. They say, thank God for wheat. Thank God for the wheat that they can import, because otherwise they eat nothing. So the song of the wheat, beautiful. It needs a bit of explanation too. All of these poems, they need, they need to be read and appreciated slowly but surely. And I don't have that time, so I have to keep going. Now the next one is, of course, Henry Lawson, a great, short story writer. And here we go. We said page 50, page 56. And after the tea. Yes? Yes, and here we keep going. An old mate of your father. We continue from last time. And after tea, they would sit on a log of the wood heap on or the edge of the veranda, that is the warm weather, and yarn about Ballarat and Bendigo. Of the days when we spoke of being on a place oftener than at it, on Ballarat, on Goolgong, on Lambing Flat, on Creswick, and they would use the definite article before the names as on the Turon, or the Lachlan, on the Lachlan, on the Home Rule, on the Canadian Hill, lead, on the Canadian lead. Then again, they'd yarn of old mates such as Tom Brooke, Jack Henright, and Paul Martin Redcliffe, who was killed in his golden hole, and of other men whom they did not seem to have known much about, and who went by the names of Adelaide Adolphus, Corny George, and other names which might have been more or less applicable. Keep going. And sometimes they get talking low and mysterious, like about its Eureka Stockade. And if we didn't understand and asked questions, what was the Eureka Stockade, or what did they do it for? Father would say, now run away, sonny, and don't bother me. Me and Mr. So-and-so want to talk. Father had the mark of a hole on his leg, which he said he got through a gun accident when a boy, and a scar on his side that we saw when he was swimming with us. He said he got that in an accident in a quartz crushing machine. Mr. So-and-so had a big scar on the side of his forehead. Thus was caused by a pick accidentally slipping out of a loop in the rope and falling down a shaft where he was working. But how was it that they talked how? But how was it they talked how low? But how was it they talked low? Why did they talk low? And their eyes brightened up, and they didn't look at each other, but away over sunset, and had to get up and walk about and take a stroll in the cool of the evening when they talked about Eureka. That's it. And about they talk lower and more mysterious-like, and perhaps Mother would be passing the wooden heap and catch a word and ask, who was the Tom? So, who was the Tom? And Tom father would say, oh, you didn't know her, Mary? She belonged to a family Bill knew at home. And Bill would look solemn until Mother had gone, and then they would smile a quiet smile and stretch and say, ah, well, and start something else. They didn't want to give the answers. And start something else. Okay, I'm going to stop there for next time. Next time we'll start from the head yarns for the fireside. Now, of course, this is the Henry Lawson, the old mate of your father's. That's the short story. The old mate of your father's. Okay, so we've done this one too. Now we check the time, 11:58. Now that gives me a bit of time to show you my travels around Australia. And I love this. Yes. But you've got to be patient now. You've got to wait for me to go to where I'm supposed to be. Here. Now, of course, I've got to bring the computer. It's got to start working for me. Here we go. Come on. Yes, here we are. Done. I'm happy when it works. When it doesn't work, it's a pain. Here we are. We stopped last time. We were in Western Australia, if you remember, and we were at Willie Creek. Willie Creek. So here we go. Let's have a look at Willie Creek. This is a pearl country. Here we go. Here we are. That's what's the boat. We caught the boat. Oh no. Oh no. Why? I have to sign in. Sorry. Dear me. Let's hope that it works out for me, that it comes back exactly where it was. No. No. Yes, no, maybe. Let's see. Doesn't matter. I mean, you know, I've learned now what all this is about. It's a trial. It's my trial. Here we go. Dear. What am I to do? We got a bit more. Just got to be a bit patient. That's it. We've got to, you know, we're almost there. I had to restart. See, that's the problem, because I put it up first, and then I have to wait. When I'm ready, what can you do? But this is an interesting trip because of the pearls. Pearls. Pearl country. We got one more day to go. July. This was July 18, 2022. Almost there, because we saw the Japanese cemetery, or the Chinese, the Japanese one. What it was. And here we are. We're almost there now. Here. Done. I'm back again. Okay, here we go. So this is Willie Creek. There you are. Nice picture of my sister Angela, Tom, and the driver. They loved it. Yes, sir. One of my colleagues there. They all love my selfies. This is where they gather the pearls, you know, the clams. This is an interesting one because apparently the water rises, and those cars that we see, they're in dangerous spot there. They could be swallowed up. On the way, we see, see that? Beautiful place. Close by. Really quick, you can see that, the reading. That's how they get pearl. Last time I showed you, you know, they had a whole lesson on how pearls are are manufactured. Contrast of colours. Beautiful. That's the water apparently comes up and goes back and then goes the other way, depending on the time of the day. And it causes what you see there. I suppose when you think about it, water is water. You have to experience it, because in terms of pictures, you don't get, you don't get much of satisfaction looking at water all the time like that. Anyway, past some of them, some of the talking. See, they're showing there. There it is. That's how they get the pearl. Interesting. Look at that. That's apparently about $10,000 for that one, if not more. And the driver there, he comes up 2 or 3 months of the year to do this work. There it is. There you are. Well, it was a good excursion, there's no doubt. But this was the car I was talking about before. The water rises, and that car, if it doesn't get out of the way, it'll be swallowed up. We were happy to see it gone. Pensive mood. Back again. This now land. More interesting. There you are. Does he say something? Yes.
Who's yelling at me?
Can I ask you, what's your name?
Joe.
Joe. Oh, easy name, huh?
Easy to remember.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a wonderful experience, and you're a real,
I appreciate
hero here.
Yeah, it's good to come in the creek and talk about what I've been doing out in the ocean league.
That's it.
Just explain what we've been doing.
And encourage people to self-respect.
We're always looking for new people to come and enjoy themselves with us.
And I will be helping you out with this.
That's good.
Well, that's it. Then we go inside. There's a lady here. And that's the other driver, presenter, Dinah Hira. Here we had a bit of a drink. Look how nicely set up it is. Restrooms. There we are. Willie Creek. Of course, you can look up Willie Creek and see the story. When was it established, etc., etc. I don't remember now. But it was like, you know, a civilized island where everything was, it's a good business, really. And then the explanations about the, you know, the getting of the pearls. Mental tissue that has to come out. Gonad. Look at the different types of pearls, different colours. It's the pearl, making of the pearl. Whoa. Beautiful, huh? Very, very good. Different sizes of the pearls. I don't know, I can't remember whether it was 10 or 20,000 for one little ball like that. God. Ah, well, I think the pearl excursion is coming to an end. Interesting pieces. All you need is money. And the shop there. Just to let you know that I was there. Okay. It's a lovely gift if you can afford it. Willie Creek. Now we're going. We are definitely going. Broom Pearls. There you are. Pearly country. Beautiful vegetation. I loved it. The area was nice. Look at the brown earth. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's just drive slowly. I'm going to stop there. And let's have a look. I'm stopping there because time has arrived. Okay, so there we are. Next time we'll start from that particular bit of video. Okay, well, I'm glad that I've done this particular program today because it had been a couple of weeks since I'd done it. I prepared it, but I really should do this more often. However, we'll continue with the history as we move along with the other programs that I present to you via my Facebook page. And then, of course, Insegna.com in the blog section and YouTube. This will follow later. Okay, so from TomPadula, this is program 68, of course. I want to wish you the very best for the rest of the week. And thank you very much for those people who come on today, and there's others who will come on after I post it. And just I'm about to finish now. I just want to say goodbye. Ciao. See you next time. Tom Padula from TomPadulaTV on YouTube and Insegna Booksellers.